the presence and to the spirit of our God, to our officers, our members, and our friends. We greet good morning. And of course, we thank God for our music ministry under the direction of Sister Ruby for leading us in a most excellent way on this morning. God bless you. Amen. As we go to 2nd Chronicles 7, beginning at verse 12, we find our text on the morning, of the morning rather. As always, we recognize the presence of my beloved wife, baby girl, and as we stand, as we reverence the reading of the Holy Writ. 2nd Chronicles 7, beginning at verse number 12. 2nd Chronicles 7 and 12, very familiar passage, and the word of God reads as thus. And the Lord appeared to Solomon by night and said unto him, I've heard thy prayer, and have chosen this place to myself for an house of sacrifice. If I shut up heaven, that there be no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and forgive their sin and will heal their land. You may be seated in the presence of God. I want to share with you this morning from the subject, the blessing of a divine exchange, the blessing of a divine exchange. There is some interesting things that occur in this text, reflective to me, much like the interesting things that occur in our nation and in the world. Solomon, great visionary, has completed two things at one time. He has completed the building of his own palace, and he has completed the building of the temple of God. Two things at one time. This is an extraordinary feat because on one hand, he has to build a temple with the grandeur and the status reflective of the King of Kings, the King of the universe. On the other side, or the other hand, he has to build a palace that is reflective of his status as king, wisest man to have ever lived. On the same day, they would stand there with their heads hung high, with their chest erect at the moment, as they would consecrate, as they would have the grand opening, as I oftentimes refer to it as the day of the temple. In that moment, the Holy Spirit shows up. Burnt offerings were to be brought. Burnt offerings to render unto God for God's goodness and faithfulness to a nation. Let's be clear, not always a faithful nation, not always a good people, but burnt offerings unto God for God's goodness and faithfulness to a nation. Not because the nation has always been what they should be to God, but they render burnt offerings to God for God's goodness and faithfulness towards a nation. The Holy Spirit shows up in strength and in power. Some folk forgot rather, that this was a house of sacrifice, that this was a house of prayer. Not just one fold, but two. Not simply the place where they came to mourn and to groan and to render of their needs and desires to the Lord, but they are also the place where they came to sacrifice to the Lord for God's goodness and mercies towards them. But amidst this, they've forgotten some critical thing, much like we have oftentimes forgotten. God has been good. God has been gracious. God has brought these same people through much terrible states in their nation, have brought them through much pestilence, have brought them through much of their own rebellion, have brought them through many wars, generation after generation, have brought them through their wilderness experience, have brought them through their scrutiny, brought them through exile, all types of things that the Lord has seen for the people. And now they have come to build and to dedicate the temple, to build and to dedicate the palace, but they have forgotten about it all belonged to the Lord. They gave of their offerings. They gave of their burnt sacrifices. And in that moment of giving of their burnt sacrifices, the Bible says that their burnt sacrifices were devoured by the fire. Not just the fire, beloved of God, not just the fire that there rose upon the altar, but the fire of the Ruach HaKodesh, the fire of the Holy Ghost, in symbolism, in declaration, in admonishment, that they would never forget that all that is and all that shall ever be is because of God. And so Solomon, in his wisdom, but also in his stupidity often, has forgotten that in this declaration, everything in the palace and everything in the temple with such splendor, with such grandeur, but he has forgotten that this was ultimately God's place. Before they should have done anything, they should have remembered that it was the residency of the Lord. But I need to declare to you, beloved of God, that if we forget, God will always remind you. If we forget what belongs to Zion, if we forget what belongs to the Lord, if we forget what belongs to the King, if we forget what belongs to the one who has created the earth and the fullness thereof and have founded upon the sea and established it upon the flood, he will remember you. And in his remembering of you, he will bring into that remembrance your remembrance of God. And that it is his in fullness and in splendor, and not only that which you have, but that which you are. And so it was that their burnt sacrifices had been burnt up upon the altar. But in all of this day of celebrating, in all of this day of marvelous splendor, in all of this day of people bringing together the dignitaries of the land together to see the palace and to see the temple, somebody had forgotten about God. And I often think, is that the state? Is that the state of this nation? Is that the state of this world? Is that the state of why people in frenzy are walking around about a coronavirus? Is that the state of why we are so scared that despite what the CDC has said, and I'm not saying it's important, we won't touch each other? Is it because the Lord has sent us in frenzy because we have forgotten about the King? We have built great palaces. We've built great churches. We've driven great cars. We've slept in great hotels, and we've even rested in great neighborhoods, but we have forgotten about the one who brought us to the moment. And so the Lord oftentimes has an interesting way of sending us in frenzy, to send us with our heads spinning around. Have we forgotten Zion? And now have we hung our hops upon the willow trees? And so I find it interesting that on bright Sunday morning, bright Sunday morning. Yesterday, I went into the store and I bought several things that I wanted for myself and wanted for my home. I went along about my day, and hundreds, if not thousands, were in the store bumping up against one another as they went through the clothing stores, bumping up next to each other. They went through the Walmarts and went through the Marshall, seemingly unafraid. But Sunday morning, must have sanitizer, must sanitize Sunday morning, 3-4 feet away from each other Sunday morning, too scared to come and render unto Zion what is Zion's. But I have news for you, the Lord will remind you. But I need to tell you, someone said to me just last evening, said that the worst of this has perhaps not been seen, and I need to deem that that might just be so. Because the Lord has a way that even on the day of the coronation, even on the day of the dedication, even on the day where you have seen much splendor, guess what? It was the best moment in Solomon's life, but the best moment in Solomon's life was the preface to the worst season in his life. I need to tell you, don't you get so haughty now that you dare think because you have finally think that you've made it, that you've finally gotten where you wanted to get to, that you have all the things that you want, that life is treating you the way that you want. Don't think that hell's corridor still does not have a place to sit you. Please don't dare think that sickness cannot befall you. Please don't think that marital issues cannot befall you. Please do not think that there cannot be issues to your own physical body. There can be a moment of splendor that stands right before a moment of great aching. Sometimes, beloved, it is not just the darkest hour that precedes the breaking of day, but sometimes it's the brightest hour that precedes the deepest and darkest of night. And so Solomon thought that he had it all together because he had both a palace and he had both a temple. Lord, I got what I want, and you got what you want. But Solomon had forgotten that it all belonged to him. There was a people and a nation that had set up an agenda to dedicate a temple, but they had forgotten that what is the point of bringing all of the great delegates of Israel together to dedicate a temple when the temple is not yours? What is the purpose of sending in great orchestra? What is the purpose of bringing together all of these wonderful people who testify? Have you not seen what Solomon built? And right on the other side of it is his palace. But you have not invited the very one who shall dwell amongst you always. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the one who kept you, the one who keeps you, the one who keeps on bringing you, the one who keeps on making ways for you, the one who keeps on forgiving you despite our foolish and our contrary and contradictory ways. You forgot that very one. But if you forget God, God will remember you. Sometimes God got to remember you by burning stuff up. Sometimes God got to remember you by taking some stuff that you love away. Sometimes God got to remember you by making you look like you're running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Sometimes God has to allow you to remember him by causing your life to just go topsy-turvy. Sometimes God will cause you to remember because he sends something your way that you can't fix, you can't handle, you can't create a solution. There's no scientist brilliant enough. There's no economy strong enough. And there's no political system great enough to deal with it by itself. But in that moment, God just is opening up the eyes and the ears of those that got enough sense to listen. Ye who have an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit is saying to the church. I need to tell you, beloved of God, there should be a question that is ringing in the very spirits of beloved people in this day and hour, and it should not be just simply what is coming from the White House. It should not just simply be what is coming from the United Nations. It should not just be what is coming from the state and the local government. It should be, what is the Spirit saying to the church? And I'm not talking about the pastor. I'm not talking about the fellowship of deacons. I'm not talking about the fellowship of trustees. I'm talking about the church, those that have been blood-born, those that have been blood-bought, those that have been called out by the Spirit of God as the living organism, those that do not seek to come to church, but those that recognize that the church shows up. And the church does not just show up, but with power and with confidence and with fortitude. But in that moment, God showed up and all of those people fell down. Fell down under the power of the fire. And so after this moment, he says to Solomon, he says, let's make it right. He says, I need to tell you, y'all need your nation, your people, those who have been exiled, those that lost in your land, because many scholars believe that there is a great distinction, or there is a great difference in time from by the time we get to 2 Chronicles 7 and 14, and when we began this whole conversation about the dedication of the palace and the temple. But he says that there has been some loss in the people. You've seen some good days. You've had some blessings. You've had some wonderful stuff. But it seems like y'all forgot about me. You've been wiping your stuff more than you've been worshiping me. You've been treasuring your stuff more than you've treasured the person, the God that gave you the stuff. You've been treasuring yourself and your loved ones more than you treasure the God that gave you yourself and gave you your loved ones. I think there's the need and for you to acknowledge the blessing of divine exchange. What is the blessing of divine exchange? Here is the divine exchange, that when you come to the place and to the state in your mind, your body, and your spirit, that you gotta let go of how you see it.
Come on, Doc, preach.
For how heaven needs for you to see it. When you let go of your wants for God's wants. When you let go of your order for God's order. When you let go of how you've been trying to run your life for how God is trying to order your life. When you let go of how you're trying to dictate versus how heaven is trying to direct. When you exchange yourself, your will, your desires for heaven's will, that's how God will show up and God will bless you. And I need to tell you, God will bless you real good when you exchange your stuff for God's stuff. I've never been much of an exchanger. Always been a little bit embarrassed to go and exchange stuff in the store. If I got it didn't work, I just kept it. Went and bought something new. Women tend to like to exchange stuff more than men do. But I need to tell you, there is a benefit in the church of the living God. Exchanging your stuff for God's stuff. When you gotta let go, you gotta let go. Have you ever thought that much of the crises that we have seen, not only in this coronavirus, but in so much that has befallen the nation and befallen our own lives, was because heaven been trying to knock on our door saying, when you gonna give up your stuff? When you gonna stop thinking that it's about you? When you gonna realize that I don't really care what you think? On the dawn of creation, I never asked you where you were and what you thought. On the dawn of humanity, I created everything, didn't need you or nobody. I gave you all that you needed, and all that you shall ever need, and all that you shall ever be is because of me. Shouldn't you be wanting to go higher? Is in the midst of going higher, letting go of you for me. But he says, just in case you don't get it, sometimes I'll put something there for you to cause you to give up your stuff. He says, I just may shut up heaven. Where you sing your songs and you pray and you praise, but they don't go no further than the ceiling. Maybe I'll shut up heaven. Maybe I get you sick, but when you get sick, can't nobody kill you. You're just sick. You got itches and scratches, but you got itches, but you can't scratch them. You got hurts, but you can't move. You're paralyzed. You got children, but you can't save them. You got a husband, but you can't make them do right. You got a wife, but you can't find her. You got a church full of people who's supposed to know the Lord, but yet they can't pray you out of nothing, pray themselves through anything. You got problems, but you can't find no way to solve them. And after you can't solve that one, another problem comes on top of the problem that you already can't solve. Maybe I'll just shut up heaven. Maybe I'll shut up heaven. I'll take your mama, your daddy, and you get left by yourself, and don't nobody like you. And truth be told, you don't even like yourself. Maybe I'll just shut up heaven. Maybe I'll shut up heaven. I'll make you crazy and everybody around you crazy too. You can't help yourself, you can't help nobody, and can't nobody help you, and don't nobody wants to help you. I'll just shut up heaven. But just in case, you ever thought that maybe the stuff is breaking up and breaking down, not because it's old, but just because maybe your way of thinking has grown old? Maybe you need a new way of thought, a new way of mind, body, and spirit, and that is to let go of your stuff for heaven's stuff. He said, but just in case, if I shut up heaven, if I cause no rain to fall, that means you can have the land, but the land will be desolate. It won't give you anything. You won't be able to eat of anything. If you can't have any harvest, that means you'll have nothing at your table. If you have nothing at your table, what you going to eat from? If you can't eat from anything, eventually you going to starve to get. I'll shut up heaven and I won't even give you the rain. If you got the land, but you don't got no rain. You got the seed, but you don't got nothing that's growing. Yeah, you got the seed, but nothing grows. And then if you ain't got no land, there's no rain upon it, you can't sell anything. If you can't sell anything, you can't make no money. If you can't make no money, you can't buy anything. Guess what? I'll shut up heaven and then I'll dry up that it won't even rain upon your land. You'll talk about how much you got. What does it matter? It's desolate. It can't grow nothing for you and it can't grow nothing from nobody else. Meaning you can't be a blessing to yourself, nor can you be a blessing to anybody. What'll happen if I shut up heaven and I'll stop the rain? I'll shut up heaven and I'll stop the rain, where you'll get your face in the midst of your hurt and your pain so deep, so dark, so grim that guess what? I'll make sure that your wells begin to dry up. Your wells will dry up. And so after your wells have dried up, the only thing that will quench your parched tongue is the rain that falls from the sky. But I'll shut up heaven and I'll make sure that no rain falls. Not only that, whatever you got left, I'll send the locusts to eat up your stuff. I won't just dry up your land. I'll cause no water to fall, that your crop won't come up. You'll have nothing to eat, nothing to sell. And then whatever you got left, I'll send something to take it from you. You better be careful when you love stuff more than you love God. Be careful when you love yourself more than you love God. When you love that woman, you love that man, you love that thing more than you love God. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Job, you seem so foolish. Why don't you just curse God and die? No. This thing is not about God. It's about you. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Maybe the Lord just trying to get your attention. If I shut up heaven, if I cause no rain to fall, and then I cause the locusts to come and devour up the rest of your stuff. But I still need to tell you there's a blessing in divine exchange. You want to know maybe how God can do and put something in the mind of the most brilliant people to bring cure? God just comes and cures it himself. God take worry out the most frantic of people. God brings families and churches back together. He says, I got here a remedy for you. I know we say, I've heard it, I've said it myself. Yeah, we talk about faith, but we got to talk about reality. Or we talk about faith, or we still got to be realistic. We talk about faith, yes, but we got to protect ourselves. But oh my God, I think God sometimes just calls us to trust him. Trust him like our ancestors trusted him.
Yeah, yeah.
Trusted when we couldn't see. Trusted. Sometimes I think we trust better when we ain't got nothing.
Come on, Doc.
I think sometimes we trust when we ain't got nothing to lose. I think sometimes when we got everything just down to its least common denominator, sometimes I think we trust better. Sometimes God might got to take us back to being crusty, ashy, nappy-headed, no perm, no relaxer, no activator, just you. Sometimes God maybe need to take us back to the ghettos, or take us back to sharecropping, or take us back to being broken. Maybe sometimes God needs to take us back to the place where shoes just run over here and run over there. Sometimes God might need to take us back where you got to put cardboard in the bottom of the shoe. Sometimes God might need to take you back where the only grease you got is the lard that make you so shiny. Maybe God need to take you back where you put a hot comb on the stove and burn the nap straight. Maybe God need to take us back.
Come on, Doc. Preach. Tight, but it's right. Come on. Preaching this morning.
Maybe God needs to take us back. Because isn't it amazing when we have so much, we're so prim and proper.
Amen.
We've gotten so dignified. I've gotten so dignified now. But every now and then, God got a way of getting your attention.
Yeah.
What'll happen when you don't got no money to buy no sanitizer, and the sanitizer don't make no difference one way or another?
Come on, Doc. Preach, Doc. Say so.
What make no difference? You ain't got nothing to go to the doctor with, and the doctor ain't letting you in to see you anyhow because he's scared of you and you too sick to get to him. What's going to happen then? And the only thing you got is heaven that's left. And heaven just waiting to say, I need to give you something. I want to give you something. But you got to let go of you for me. But just in case it get real bad now, just in case it get real dark now, just in case it get real crazy now, if I shut up heaven, if I stop the rain, if I send the locusts, if my people,
Come on, Doc. Come on. Preach.
if my people called from my dust, came together coagulated by my breath, by my word, living and sustained upon my breath, walking upon my every spoken word, if my people were called by my name. Called by my name, meaning that you thought that it was you, but I laid you down in the night. And in the morning I rose you up by my will and by my word. You went to the job and you walked through the day. Even the pain that you feel is only because I put the sensation there for you to have the ability to feel it. It's only because of me. If my people who are called by my name,
Come on, John.
I don't care whether you call it Corona. I don't care whether you call your problem Donald Trump. I don't care whether you call your problem broke. I don't care whether you call your problem just broke, busted, and disgusted. I don't care whether you call your problem just sick and cannot get well. I don't care whether you call your problem AIDS or HIV. If my people who are called by my name would humble themselves. Humble yourself.
Humble yourself.
Just bring yourself down a little. Remember, this prayer is not really about you. This prayer is about the God that is over you. Humble yourself now. God's saying if you just bring yourself down and remember that the earth is mine, you are mine, all your stuff is mine, humble yourself. But then after you humble, I need a people who will not only acknowledge that you belong to me. I need a people who are not only willing to seek my face and humble themselves, but I need you to exchange something. You got to let go of something. You got to turn from something. That turn means you gotta change something, meaning you just can't gotta let this go for this moment. And soon as you get yourself right back again and happy, you go back to the same thing. You gotta turn from something. You gotta exchange something. You gotta believe that prayer really does work, and that faith and prayer, that is the key to the kingdom. You gotta believe and know in your very heart that this is more than just something that we do. This is something that we are. You gotta know that you know that you know that your Redeemer liveth, as Copeland reminded us, so came together on Wednesday. You have to know that you gotta let something go. But if you let yourself go for my stuff, I'm just gonna show you that I had your stuff and my stuff all along. I just needed you to remember that all your stuff was my stuff. And I just allow you to lend you some of my stuff and make it you think is your stuff for a little while. And every now and then I ask you for a little bit of your stuff to see if you can trust me with what you think is your stuff, so I can take a little bit of that stuff and just put my stuff over it to give you back more of my stuff. That's all I've been trying to do for you. And if you would realize all of that, if my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray, seek my face, and turn from my wicked ways. I ain't seen no virus so strong. I have not seen a Congress or Senate so mixed up, so divided. I have not seen a nation so broken up. I've not seen a church so weary and so bitter and so weak. I've not seen a people of God so ill. I've not seen a family so torn apart. I've not seen a marriage so bad. I've not seen a heart so broken that I will not hear from heaven. If everything gets shut up, just try me. Have a little talk with Jesus. Tell him all about your trouble. I need to tell you, I don't care how bad it is, he'll hear your faintest cry. And I need to tell you, if you keep on praying, if you keep on letting that prayer wheel keep on turning, if you get ready to let your wrong go for the right, he'll hear from heaven. Surely I've seen the affliction of my people. I've heard their cry. But not only do I see, not only do I hear, I'm responsive. I come down from where I am to where you are to answer and to deliver. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked way, I will hear from heaven and I'll heal the land. The blessing of divine exchange is that when we let go of what we never were responsible for taking care of. Listen here. What we were never responsible for taking care of. We got a whole lot of mess because you took on duties that were never yours to start off with. What we were never responsible for taking care of in the first place. When you let go of a position that won't ever yours to start off with, God will bless you. By becoming not only king of your soul, but Lord of your life. God will bless you. By giving you what you cannot create with your own hands, God will bless you. By fixing in you what you have tried to fix for the last 40 or 50 years of your life, and truth be told, you're more messed up now than you were 40, 50 years ago, God will bless you. By creating in you a strength and a heart and a mind and a fortitude to see God's glory revealed, God will bless you. That's the blessing of divine exchange. I will hear from heaven, but I'll heal your land. I don't know what your land is. For them, their land was returning a people from exile back to the promised land of their people. But whatever your land may be, your heart, your mind, your children, your marriage, fear, anger, whatever your land may be, I declare the blessing of divine exchange is that God will heal our land. I pray for healing for you. Would you stand today?
Amen.
The doors of the church are open.